I'm James Parker in for Sterling on Sunday, along with Rebecca Pratt. And we're going to be joined this segment by Sean Cirino. WPHT is his home base. And for this, I wanted to bring in Sean in addition to Rebecca for the diversity factor. You know, we're going to try and hit as many boxes as we can. You're a trans woman. I am the most evil person alive right now. I'm a straight, white, heterosexual, cisgendered Christian male. Like whatever scholarships are out there, none of them are for me. And then we're bringing in Sean. Not that he's the spokesman, but I believe he is of African American descent. Are my assumptions correct there, Sean? I don't want to.
Yes, you are. You're
right.
correct with that.
Now, in addition to that level of diversity, there's the age diversity. Sean is in his mid-20s. I'm in my mid-40s. Rebecca is in her mid-50s. And so this is a great conversation to have with this crew right here, because the NBA finals are going on right now. And as not stereotypically expected for a trans woman, Rebecca is a big NBA fan. I'm an NBA fan. Sean's an NBA fan. And Rebecca had said something earlier today that has caused me to think more than most of the comments that come out of her mouth. And she is saying that in addition to everything that he's already accomplished, if it hadn't been solidified by now, the performance that Steph Curry is putting forward in this NBA Finals has him on track to be one of the top 5 NBA players of all time. Now, non-sports fans are like, oh, God, please don't talk about sports. We're not going to talk about X's and O's. We're not going to talk about, stats and numbers and what's on the back of their basketball card, as much as we're going to talk about the decision-making process by which these things are determined across positions, but more importantly, across generations. And some cool things are happening right now, because no matter how big of a fan you are of the current players, whether it's a LeBron or a Steph Curry or whatever, I think this is interesting because we all kind of agree still, even 30 years after the fact, that Michael Jordan is the best to have ever played. And so now it's just a race to fill in the last 4 spots on the top 5. And that's what really this is. It's not, is Steph Curry in the top 5? It's if Steph Curry isn't in the top 5, who are the 5 that are in there? So, Rebecca, make the case for Steph Curry being a top 5 all-time NBA player.
Well, he's the greatest shooter who ever lived. He is trying to win his 4th NBA title. And by the way, that's a best out of 3 series now that continues tomorrow night. They've been playing basketball for 7 months, and now it comes down to 2 out of 3 games. But if most basketball fans agree that he's the greatest shooter who ever lived, he has to be in the top 5. And I know most people will say Michael Jordan, they'll say Kobe Bryant, they'll say Magic Johnson, they'll say Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain. But I say, if you're talking about the top 5 NBA players who ever played, shouldn't it be by position? You have a point guard, a shooting guard, 2 forwards, and a center. Shouldn't that be the best 5? Or should the best 5 who ever played in the NBA, they 4 of them could play the same position?
Sean, what do you think of that? Yes, no, you agree with that, disagree with that? Where do you stand on Steph Curry being in the top 5?
Well, listen, I wanted to definitely say with Rebecca, you had some really interesting points with all of that, but I have to disagree with you with Steph Curry being the top 5. And I love Steph. But when you said that he's the greatest shooter of all time, I completely agree with you with that. But that doesn't give you enough accolades to put you in that top 5. Because before Steph Curry, it was Ray Allen. And we didn't even recognize Ray Allen as like a top 15 player of all time. And he was the greatest shooter of all time. And then also when you look at Steph in all his championship runs, he had Kevin Durant, he had superstars. He also had the second best shooter of all time in my eyes, Klay Thompson, on his team. So it's kind of hard. I would definitely say that Steph is the second best point guard of all time if he can win the Finals MVP.
So you look at him more as a point guard than a shooting guard.
Yeah, I definitely could say that because he's the main guy that has the ball all the time. So I will give him the status as a point guard.
Wow. Okay. Right.
And I mean, there are other people too. Larry Bird. There are other players too. But when you want to talk about the top five of all time, that's kind of like talking about the top five rock bands of all time. There's going to be it's going to be a bit subjective. Um, but you make sense.
Now, is it what's your reasons on why do you feel like Steph is the top 5 player of all time?
It's because he's the greatest shooter who ever lived. And I think if you're going to say the man is the greatest shooter who ever lived, you would think you would have to put him in the top five. I hear what you said about Ray Allen, but Ray Allen didn't win the championships that Steph Curry is winning. Um, and that has a lot to do with it too. When you talk about great players, they have to be on winning teams because there are a lot of guys that put up big numbers, but all they do is lose.
Julius
So you
Erving.
you can't talk about those guys. But when you talk about the top five, whoever played, especially if you're going position, if you're gonna put out an NBA team, two guards, two forwards, and a center, boy, the backcourt of Steph Curry and Michael Jordan looks really good.
It does look very good, but I could definitely say that Steph Curry had way more superstars and if not future Hall of Famers on his team than compared to like Michael Jordan and his team because he only had Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. And then when you look at Steph, he has a crazy amount of acolytes. He had Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, like these guys are all stars. And then we can't forget about Andre Iguodala. He was really good at one moment too.
All right, where is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fitting into this? Because this is the regular season points leader.
Yeah, and he scored more points than anybody. I mean, you can have an argument. Who's your center on the best starting five of all time? Is it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Is it Bill Russell? Is it Wilt Chamberlain? I think it would have to be either Jabbar or Russell.
Okay.
See, mine's I guess I could say that I haven't watched, any of those guys that have played, and I completely respect them. But I would definitely say like my two top big men would be Shaq and it would be Tim Duncan.
Wow. See, this is what I'm talking about. When you talk to someone under 30, they of course there's going to be a recency bias, but he's not saying Akeem Olajuwon or anything like that.
But those two names are definitely in the discussion. I mean, Hakeem won a couple of titles, and he was dominant when he played.
Yeah. So I'm interested to hear Sean. As how old are you, Sean? 25, 26? What were you?
I'm 26.
Yeah, 26. So what is your top five?
So my top 5 is LeBron, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, and Magic Johnson.
Wait, you put them? You don't have Michael Jordan at number one?
So it's very hard to really.
Oh, that wasn't
so when
in
it
order.
comes down to number one,
Okay.
like when it comes down to like Michael Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron, I put them all in their own little section because they all did 3 different things that impacted the NBA in so many different ways. So that's the only reason why I can't really say it's a definite number one, but I could definitely say that those 3 guys are tied for number one because they did a lot of different things in the league.
Hard to argue with that.
No, and
Stephanie,
it is. I mean, it's a great discussion to have because there are several names that legitimately could be in the top five in the NBA, but there's only 5 spots. Mount Rushmore only has 4 spots.
I hear you.
So that's what makes it so tough.
All right, I want you guys' reaction to Stephanie's comment that her top 5 is Michael Jordan, Shaq, Barkley, Bird, and Kobe.
I like Barkley too, but he just didn't win enough. And I think if you're talking, Stephanie, about top 5, the guys had to be winners. They had to win multiple NBA championships. They had to lead their team to winning multiple NBA championships. And Barkley just couldn't do that.
So how does Steph climb the ladder to get into that top 3, Sean?
So in order for Steph to get into that top 3, as the greatest of all time, he has to win multiple finals MVP, because that's the only thing that's stopping Steph.
And he doesn't have one?
No, he has none. He has none so far. And I feel like if Steph could get at least 2 or 3 more under his belt, and yes, his title ring is going to go up crazy high, but I feel like that's where it's going to give him that input of being one of the top 3 of all time. Now, don't get me wrong, he's the greatest shooter of all time, but he needs to have more of those acolytes to really put him above everybody else. Because you look at the other top 5, their acolytes is tremendous. There's so many different titles and awards from all the other 3 guys that's around.
All right. When I see the name Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that just reminds me, what the hell
Go to
happened?
break soon.
What happened to the skyhook? Is that coming back? Why does can you speak for the younger generation here, Sean? Why don't y'all do the skyhook?
The skyhook is just not the thing now. I say the skyhook is the new 3-point shot, because that's what everyone likes to do. And I feel like the skyhook is just one of those like pioneer and very, very like I'll just definitely say like it's just one of those legendary moves that you can only perfect it. You can't really learn it. You have to perfect it.
And even back in the day when Kareem was doing the skyhook, there weren't many other players who were doing the skyhook.
It just seems an unstoppable shot, like that Dirk Nowitzki fadeaway. Like, why doesn't everybody do that? And I predict the skyhook will make it come. Some player is going to make his bones being the skyhook guy. Is that a reasonable prediction?
Hopefully, Joel Embiid.
All right. Thank you very much, Sean Cirino from WPHT, along with Rebecca Pratt. I'm James Parker. You're listening to Sterling on Sunday.